Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. A few days ago, Dr. Alex Karp was at the Reagan Summit. I covered that. And then right after the Reagan Summit, he went on Squawk Box CNBC and he had a really good discussion. Now, he was on CNBC several times over the course of the last year, and I honestly think that CNBC has been a good friend to Palantir, for whatever that's worth. So any opportunity that they could have him on the show is a really good opportunity to show out for Palantir. As like with the last video from my Reagan Summit, I'm going to summarize the entire 9-minute video, and then I'm going to post the 9-minute video on the second half of this video. It seems like a lot of my community really likes me to summarize the video before I actually play the video. If you like something like that, let me know in the comments down below. Hey, Adam, keep doing these little summaries before you post the second half. Or Adam, we're not feeling these summaries. Last time, I think 1 or 2 people said that they weren't feeling that. And overwhelmingly, a lot of people like me posting the summaries. With that said, please do me a favor. Can you please give me a like, share, subscribe, or a comment in general just for the algorithm so that the almighty YouTube algorithm actually pushes my content to the top. Without further ado, let me give you the quick abbreviation. The first thing that he was asked was about Palantir's products. He goes on to say that Palantir is spending nearly a decade of building products of peace. For example, PPP distribution, supply chain distribution, catastrophe help, so on and so forth. He says that they also have been spending more than a decade building products of war. He described his products of war as being highly precise AI-enabled targeting software. He says there's obviously a lot of stuff that I can't talk about, but that's how he describes what they build as their products of war. He says these products are changing the course of history and the power structure of America. Throughout the globe, adversaries used to ridicule the United States in their military capabilities, and now that has stopped. We were always perceived as weak or subpar when it comes to the military and technology in the military. And our adversaries, for some reason, thought that America is just good at making movies and playing sports. He says that's no longer the case. America is no longer viewed as a place that builds the best liberty, but as a culture and country that builds the best software. He goes on and on to reiterate that we build the best software. Not just Palantir, but America as a whole builds the best software. He went on to talk about a lot of tech companies in America act how they like to help America, but they actually work with our adversaries, act like they put America first, but actually put America last. It's all an act for the publicity. He says, but we as a tech culture need to work with the United States government first in order to keep making America strong. He says we sued the government twice. And when we sued the government, we didn't sue them that you have to use Palantir. We sued them and challenged them to use the best products out there. And those best products just happen to be Palantir in both instances. He went on to talk about transforming a current industry in bad times and winning against adversaries. Software is the single most important thing. And he says Palantir by far has the best software in what they specifically do. And it's going to be very hard for anybody to catch up to Palantir in certain niche markets and impossible for people to catch up to Palantir in certain other things that they build because Palantir builds for 5 years in advance. He went on to talk about software prime for the Department of Defense, and he says that this is northways of $900 billion total addressable market. He went on to say that Palantir is going to get quite a large percentage of that $900+ billion total addressable market because our competition and our adversaries, both abroad and both domestically, cannot keep up with building software like Palantir. He was asked about China. He says China cannot be surpassed in controlling its citizens. However, Palantir in the United States cannot be surpassed in making sure that our adversaries pay a massive price if they attack the United States. America adapts and at the end of the day will buy the single best product. That's what's good about America. It's always been like this about America. We will win in selling our software to the commercial sector. He says that our military government software can be applied to the commercial, and even if we are new to the commercial offering, our product will win at the end. This is something that I reiterate on this channel many times. that Palantir builds for the military. Palantir builds for the government. However, if you are good enough for our military and our government, you are definitely good enough for our largest corporations that work and overlap in various similar industries. For example, what's happening with this healthcare system, how we just landed the Cleveland Clinic, how we just landed a $400+ million contract with the CDC, how we landed a massive contract with Tampa Hospital, and there's so many more that's going to come. Where is this coming from? They're all coming from contracts like the CDC, like the NIH, like the National Health Services, right? This is where they're all coming from. You work with the government and then you work with the commercial sector. Finally, and this is a very, very chilling statement, he closed by saying, Palantir has always been over and undervalued. Right now, we are clearly undervalued, but one day we will be overvalued once again. And that was an absolutely tremendous statement. With that said, this is my first half of the video. The second half of the video is literally going to be the 9-minute video of everything that I just said. But there's a lot of little nuances that I might have missed or might have interpreted wrong. And there's a lot of questions that were asked by the interviewer. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Been well over a decade, and certainly if you look from inception, building products for peace. So, so you could distribute vaccines and organize many of the most important institutions in the world. But of course, products of war. We believed and believe if, unlike most of our colleagues in Silicon Valley, if you are strong, you prevent the adversary from acting up. And that's why we thought this war might happen. We build products that allow you to do very high-end AI-enabled targeting. Most of the details we can't discuss, but our adversaries are very, very well aware now of their impact. These products have changed the course of history. They changed the power structure of America. And perhaps most importantly, as a former academic, our adversaries used to run around the world. We have a very significant business outside of America saying, well, America has liberty and entertainment and freedom, but we're better at fighting wars, we're better at building products, or we're better at internal surveillance. And now, lo and behold, it turns out those of us who are purveyors not just of war products, but of liberty, most importantly, the United States of America, are not only better at entertainment and having fun, we're also better at building products of war. And that narrative, I think, is going to change the world, is already changing the world, because of the many things we're not allowed to say that have happened in the Ukraine, our adversaries know every single one of them. And so we are no longer viewed, America, as just a place that produces the most important articles of liberty, but as a culture that builds the best software.
There's a lot I want to pick up on there. I guess the first thing, though, is I see these conversations happening in places like this forum, this idea that we have to move more quickly where things like software and new technologies are concerned. DoD and other entities are not doing enough, or not deploying enough. But then I hear you talk, and it sounds like maybe that's not necessarily the case, at least where Palantir is concerned.
A lot of tech companies are, now they're, not all, but, you just have to, when we had our conversation last year, we were still in a phase where, most software companies, and certainly most companies in Silicon Valley, their basic view is how can we help the adversary while pretending to help America. So first and foremost, what we need to do in America is make sure that everyone, especially in Silicon Valley, is aligned with we are going to give our best products and our best technology to the U.S. government first, not second, fourth, and fifth, while pretending we care because we've got some crazy idea that no one cares about that makes us feel superior to everyone else. That's the most important thing. The U.S. economy, we're seeing this in our software sales in the U.S., and especially the U.S. government. Sure, there's a lot you can complain about, but it is the best at adaptation. We had to fight our way in the DoD. People, because of the size and footprint of our work, they think we're insiders. We see the U.S. government not once, but twice, not to buy Palantir, but to buy the best software, and we won twice. And so the U.S. government has been iterating and adopting and adopting and adopting. Quite frankly, the larger problem is many of our allies are living in the 70s where hardware alone could work and spending all their money on local industry that isn't really that good at software. So I think the onus of us in technology is to really invest. Of course, most companies can't be focused on the U.S. military the way we are because it's core to our mission, but they can't be focused last on the U.S. military and then complain that it's too hard.
Is it changing now because of Ukraine?
Well, there's a lot that's changing. So an already fairly good situation is getting better for technology companies because the U.S. economy and U.S. institutions in general are very pragmatic. They're much less ideological than in other countries. They're like, well, what worked? How did it work? How much did we spend on it? And what were the results? Is a very American way of looking at something. And it is exactly the way you look at tech implementation, whether it's a company or a government. And there's the outside version of what you're allowed to say, but the inside version, with all the data, a lot of which is classified, you see that it is not just a banality that we are in a software world. We are in a software world. And what's also interesting is what is America indisputably the best in the world at doing? Building software. And no one doubts it's interesting. If you ask most Americans, they'll be like, well, we're good at football. We're good at films that I never watch. We have a great finance industry. We're good at, having politicians that none of us really understand. We have a lot of aptitudes, but actually what we're the best at is building software. And it turns out for transforming your industry in hard times and winning against adversaries, it is the single most important thing.
It sort of speaks to what you talked about in your recent letter, which was you've shifted from insurgent outsider to incumbent. This idea of software as a prime, how big is that opportunity for Palantir?
Well, America spends about $800 billion on software. By the way, we're also very big in Britain and a number of other countries. So, to use a term I hate that financial people love, total addressable market is probably north of $900 billion. And we believe we have the single most important components for adaptive warfare against a large adversary that's willing to allow their troops to die. So exactly what you saw in the Ukraine. And that the percentage of the 900 billion that we would be able to capture is obviously very large, because pragmatic people are like, well, I could spend 100 billion on something that maybe has marginal impact, that our adversaries, by the way, when you're looking at value, you always have to ask, what is it that I can build the adversary can't build? And there's a lot of things that are going to shift simply because we're building things adversaries can also build. But software, they will not be able to keep up with us. And so more and more of that market is going to come to, not just in Palantir's direction, but in the direction of people that can build software that is useful or critical for warfare.
I mean, we hear so much about China's investment in technologies. You mentioned surveillance states earlier in this conversation. I mean, it's the sort of king surveillance state, case in point, what we've seen play out in terms of protests and at least initial response to those protests in the last couple of days. Can we really counter China when technology and software are concerned? Are we really that much more dominant when they have a different business model and they've been much more aggressive on the government side?
They have a business model to control their citizens, and we will not surpass them at that. And thank God, we have a business model in America to increase liberty at home and to make sure adversaries that attack us or our allies pay a very, very heavy price. We need to stay focused on our business model. If it's about central control, either of economy or of your citizens, they win. If it's about distributed systems where you share information that's crucial for weapons of war with your adversaries, we have a huge advantage. We actually have allies and friends.
Let's talk a little bit about the commercial side of the business, especially when you're talking about technologies that have been applied to, for example, evacuations in Afghanistan being the same type of technologies that are now being purchased by commercial entities.
Well, what we see is that the most important market in the world, the US of A, is also the most adaptive market in the world. Our commercial offering is flying off the shelf. We grew in the last 12 months 102% in the US. America adapts, and will in the end buy the single best products on the market. That's why we're succeeding, despite the fact that we're new to this game and by building out a commercial sales force and doing all sorts of things normal companies are doing. Communicating with normal, otherwise adult people is not something we're particularly adept at. But we are very good at building software. The same software use cases that you have in government can be applied to American.
Do you think Wall Street truly understands what Palantir is doing, particularly on the commercial side, particularly given the fact that stock's down something like 60% this year?
Well, I think Wall Street largely understands we're a tech company and punishes all tech companies right now. The interesting thing about Palantir is all of our products historically, whether it's our Intel product, what's the mapping toggle, it's the AI product that's now changed the world, the product that we built to distribute the vaccine have been 5 years ahead of the market. Our commercial offering is 5 years ahead, 3-4 years ahead of what Wall Street probably understands. Wall Street will very well understand the value of Palantir as they begin to take effect take account of the fact that we're just outstripping everyone with our Foundry product. It will take a while, just like, honestly, when we were talking last year and I was saying, hey, we're going to do A, B, C, D. Well, that looks bad crazy. It's not bad crazy when Russia goes into a country and the software. And this is the exact same thing when it comes to Palantir's full value. And by the way, I would also say Palantir has always been over and undervalued. And clearly we're undervalued, but at some point we'll be overvalued again.